Hey Nico, would you like to share your screen before we get started to test it out?
Hi, Nico.
Hi, sorry for the delay. Was in
No
the
worries, no worries.
wrong room, but yeah, I
No,
can just share my
on
screen
time.
really fast. Just give me a second. Can you see my screen?
Yes,
Perfect.
beautiful.
And you're in full screen mode right now. We see it.
Yep, perfect.
Perfect. Thank you.
No worries.
So we're waiting just on Ryotaro Chika-san. Is that right?
Yes.
Perfect. Well, in that case, before while we get people to start coming in and stuff like that, I'll just quickly get started. For those of you who might not know Zoom that well, there are a couple of functions that you might want to be aware of. One of them being how to watch the actual presentation. If you can toggle between the view, you can have a speaker view or gallery view. It gives you two different options to watch this presentation. The speaker view obviously will have someone who is speaking come onto the main screen, and then the gallery view, you're going to want to watch the whole session with everybody else that's on board. So I'll leave that up to you. Obviously, with presentation and some stuff like that, some of the ways that you can watch it will kind of be a little bit differed and skewed a little bit. And with that said, as we do have a presentation coming up with many different people on board, we ask that you mute your mic while you are watching so that we don't talk over our presenters. And then finally, in order to interact or comment or give feedback to all of our participants, we ask that you use the chat function in the beginning, and then if we'll have Chika-san moderate, and maybe we'll pick up some of the questions in between or afterwards, but we'll try to pick up as many as possible as well. We do have some time on the back end, so if we run over a little bit, it's totally fine as well. So with that said, I guess while we wait for Ryotaro-san, we'll kick it off with Chika-san for a quick intro, and then we can go from there. But people should start trickling in a little bit. So Chika-san, I will pass you the mic, and once Ryotaro comes, I'll make him a co-host, and then we can get started.
Thank you very much. I just got a text message saying, like, he says, like, starting in 50 minutes, correct? So I said, no, now. Hopefully he will be joining in right now.
Okay, no worries. As long as the other people are okay. If we go a little bit late or whatever, it's totally fine by our side. So
yeah,
we'll
I think
wait for
he
him.
can come. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Right.
What time is it over there?
12.
12 noon?
Time.
Okay. Nice. It's 8 p.m. here in Japan. So nighttime, you guys are just getting your day started. Thank you for coming us right around lunchtime. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Maybe we can start a little bit because the first I will probably talk about us and maybe small, portion about Germany and Berlin.
Sounds good.
Yeah, let's start. So good evening, Japan, and good afternoon, Germany. Thank you very much for joining today for our very first webinar, actually, to connect Japan and Berlin, Germany. And thank you, Venture Cafe, especially Taksan Ridi. Thank you very much for hosting us tonight in Japan time. So my name is Chika Yamamoto from CrossFi. And CrossFi is a Berlin-based company with focus on bringing Japan and Berlin and European startup ecosystem together. And we aim to create a tech marketplace for both companies and startups to promote open innovations and drive business and social impact. So we work with JETRO, which is a Japanese governmental agency from Trade Ministry, as well as Berlin government to promote the ecosystem growth between Japan and Berlin. We also work with Japanese corporates to bring their open innovation partners from Europe. So if you'd like to know more, please get in touch. And I'd like to quickly introduce German startup ecosystem and especially Berlin. They have just one slide to show, for example, share with So quickly is that, so Berlin is ranked one of the top like startup ecosystem in Europe. And looking at this like comparison here, this is a comparison between like German investment market and Japanese invest market. And German invest market is about 40% bigger than Japanese investment market. And there are several unicorns and various sectors from fintech and travel, e-commerce, and to urban mobility. And German like major corporates are establishing their innovation center in Berlin to work with top talents and startups. And Tesla is opening their European headquarters soon and its factory in Berlin. Yeah, Berlin has very strong ecosystem nurture growth of innovation. And we'd like to have more Japanese companies joining to Berlin and work with startups, brilliant ones, who is going to be introduced here, coming from Berlin as well as in Germany. So today, it's my pleasure to introduce innovative startups working in smart city fields. Let me change the screen. Yeah, so each startup will have about 8 minutes to make a presentation about their product and services. And after that, we will go into the panel session. If you have any questions, please write to like questions place or in the comment section so that we can pick it up during the panel session. So the first startup is Enapta. Enapta is developing an hydrogen electrolyzer for sustainable energy productions. Okay, so Jens, please go ahead.
Okay, hello, Chika. Thank you very much for the introduction. Let me briefly share my slides here. I hope everyone can see the slides right now.
Yes.
So first of all, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to present Enapta here today. And greetings also to everyone in Tokyo listening after work hours now to our presentation. Thank you very much for that already. And now I would like to briefly introduce our company to you and what we are doing. So Enapta is a manufacturer of machines, and we develop and manufacture a patented technology called the AEM electrolyzer. And this technology that we developed is basically a relatively small but scalable modular electrolyzer system that enables people for all sorts of applications to produce hydrogen on site. Preferably that would be green hydrogen, which you can produce from renewable electricity. And then it can be stored and used in a variety of applications like production of synthetic fuels or in a fuel cell to generate electricity later on again. And one reason why we are active in this field is also because hydrogen is considered one important factor how you can decarbonize different industry and segments. And green hydrogen especially is here of importance. So what is the AEM technology? I'm sure everybody has heard about electrolyzers or hydrogen production. So AEM technology, anion exchange membrane technology, is basically kind of a merge between the two incumbent technologies called alkaline electrolyzers and proton exchange membrane electrolyzers. So we have, same like PEM electrolyzers, we have a membrane. And also as like alkaline electrolyzers, we have a slightly alkaline solution in our system. And that unique setup enables us to use relatively cheap materials compared to PEM electrolyzers, for example, while also having a high efficiency already for quite small modules. So our target price is 1.5 euro per kilogram of hydrogen or less within the next 5 years. This refers to the price, the capex cost of the electrolyzer. So it does not include the installation cost or the cost for electricity, because those are quite different depending on the location where you are at. And in order to make green hydrogen successful and to enable people to make use of it for the decarbonization of different sectors, it needs to become cheaper. And that's why we are setting also such an aggressive goal. But of course, this requires massive scaling efforts. So we have different ways of how we can reduce the cost. And one is, how do we scale the production of electrolyzers? So we think you should consider electrolyzers as a commodity business and not as a project business. So right now in the market, most electrolyzer manufacturers are actually working on huge electrolyzer stacks rather than small systems. But we think you can draw an analogy to the IT industry in the 1980s, where you had big mainframe computers, which were basically project-based business and not product business. But that kind of technology got replaced step by step by small, scalable desktop PCs. And nowadays, if you go to a data center of Amazon or Google or anywhere, you won't see mainframe computers. What you're seeing is thousands of small desktop PCs in a 19-inch rack stacked together for creating a bigger system. And we think that approach can also be applied to producing electrolyzers in big quantities. So the first step in scaling up our production we took last year, when we moved from kind of a workshop environment into a serial production environment. And by that already we were able to increase the production capacity by around 8 times. And currently we are working on further increasing the production capacity at our facilities in Italy. And the next step will be that we will build a mass fabrication site for electrolyzers in Germany. And we recently announced that that will be built in North Rhine-Westphalia in the small city called Saarbeck. Another way to reduce the cost of hydrogen is obviously also to further improve and optimize the product. So I'm not going into all the details here. I can share these slides later. But here you can see that over the last 2-3 years, we already reduced the size of our electrolyzers significantly, and also integrated many additional features. And by that, we're able to reduce the price for the electrolyzers while at the same time increasing efficiency. So we are working further on making our modules even smaller and more efficient in the future. Our current product is the Electrolyzer EL 2.1. It's basically the size of a microwave, a little bit heavier than a microwave, and it can produce half a cubic meter of hydrogen, and it only needs 4.8 kilowatt hours to do that, which is a very good value. And it provides you that already at a pressure of 35 bar. So now you might think, okay, it's a relatively small system. What can you do with that? But basically, our electrolyzer module can be scaled up to as many sizes as you would like to use it. If you have a small application, you can just use 1 or 2 of our electrolyzer modules. If you need a higher hydrogen flow rate, then you can integrate, for example, several modules into a 19-inch rack, or put several racks next to each other. But you can also integrate, for example, in a 20-feet container, up to 70 of our modules to have a system that provides you 70 kilograms of hydrogen. The midterm plan is to also have a 1 megawatt electrolyzer system, the AEM multicore, and we plan on building the first one around end of 2021, beginning of 2022. So the advantage of the modular approach here is that it's really freely scalable. It's a standardized product and it's very flexible, so it can run on partial loads without efficiency losses. And also it's a very resilient system, because even if one module does not work for some reason, the other modules will still provide you hydrogen. In addition to our electrolyzers, we have a smart energy management system that allows you to run the electrolyzers and also integrate third-party devices, and you can make like a rule-based management system which can intelligently manage automatically your system. For example, you can tell the system, if battery voltage is low, please automatically start the fuel cell to produce electricity. So far, we have provided our electrolyzer to over 33 countries and 100 customers plus. And it's used in all kinds of applications, basically. So we have people using it for hydrogen refueling stations, for drones, for cars, for forklifts. But we will also have industrial applications of hydrogen, like on-site production of hydrogen for ammonia production or in the food industry. Power to gas is also a very interesting application for the future. And now I would also like to briefly mention a few topics related to smart city or urban projects, because that's one of the topics for today. So our electrolyzer is already used in many different projects in residential area or in smart city environments. So for example, in Netherlands, we have 8 electrolyzers in a project installed where it provides a green, so renewable hydrogen for a heating process. Then we have also residential applications for multi-home houses like this one in Thailand, or also for single houses like this one here in Germany. So this kind of system enables you to store excess electricity from your solar panels you have in the summer to for seasonal balancing, to use then the stored electricity in winter time. And besides using it for single houses, you can also make microgrid, which is often the case in smart city projects nowadays. So we already have several projects also in Japan, but in most cases, our projects in Japan are together with partners who are using our electrolyzer as a white label solution. So I cannot officially mention here the projects, but I can give a few examples where it's been used in Japan so far. So in terms of application, we have our electrolyzer in a forklift refueling station and in several projects for containerized backup solutions, where there's a container which includes our electrolyzer, a third-party metal hydride tank for storage, and a fuel cell for backup purposes. Okay, thank you very much for your attention and time. And if you have any questions later on, please feel free to ask me.
Thank you very much, Jens. So it's really, really interesting. I have one question, because some of the people who might be joining here today may not understand the hydrogen electrolyzer and the best benefit, what it's replacing. So is that so that this is going to replace whole like power plant, or like what's your goal as a company?
So the goal as a company is to make green hydrogen as cheaply available as possible, so that it can be used to replace, for example, fossil fuels. So for example, if you have nowadays backup stations, those kind of backup installations are usually with diesel generators, which are not good for the environment. And an alternative would be to have a backup solution based upon electrolyzer that can produce hydrogen on site, and then with a fuel cell that can turn back hydrogen into electricity.
Okay. Is it already cheaper to use hydrogen generated electricity compared to fossil and natural resource based one?
It depends a little bit on the application. So you have some applications where green hydrogen with on-site production can be cost or price competitive already as of today. But in other applications, hydrogen produced from fossil fuels or fossil fuels are cheaper. But for example, to give one extreme example where green hydrogen with on-site production is already cost competitive, we have a site where our electrolyzer is installed in the French Alps at 3,000 meters height. And before they installed our system, they had to bring diesel for electricity production, and they had to bring it by a helicopter, which is quite expensive. So in such cases, you can already have a cost competitive system.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's really interesting. Okay, we'll have more questions later, and then I'll ask different questions later in the panel session. So the second startup is called Dabell. Dabell works with building energy management system, and their solution works really like fast to implement and no initial costs. For example, it works without installing any additional IoT devices. So let's hear it from Nico. Nico, stage is yours.
Hi, Chika. Thanks for the introduction and good evening to all of you joining from Tokyo. I will just share my screen so you can see my slides. Let me know if you can see them. Okay, perfect. So yeah, as I said, good evening from wherever you are. If you're in Tokyo, Osaka, in Berlin, you may see all these commercial buildings, so offices, hotels, retail stores, you name it. And in the basement, you typically have a building energy manager who is trying to balance energy consumption and comfort. And what we are doing here is we replace this human control with artificial intelligence. It's not only a concept, it is already a reality. We are running projects worldwide, not only here in Europe, but also in New Zealand or in China or in Australia or in the US. Let me put you a little bit in context first. Worldwide, we have over 62 billion square meters of commercial building space that is equipped with a building management system. And a building management system is controlling over 75% of the energy consumption of buildings, which is the HVAC systems, heating, ventilating, air conditioning. And buildings are responsible for over 40% of the overall energy consumption and also of the CO2 emissions. So what is the problem in running buildings manually? A single building produces over 20,000 variables per minute, making it impossible for a human being to monitor these variables and at the same time taking appropriate control decisions. So what is the problem then? We have over 40% in energy wasted, therefore unnecessary CO2 emissions, unhealthy indoor environment, and high operating costs. What do we do now to solve this problem? As I mentioned in the beginning, we replace the human control and we implement our software on top of the existing building management system. So our software overrides the control decisions of the building management system. How does it work? Our software takes all the variables into account from outside of the building, for example, the weather data, as well as from inside of the building. So occupancy, temperature data, humidity, and so on. Puts all these data in a database and takes the appropriate control decisions to run the energy systems in the most efficient way. What do we achieve with this approach? So we can achieve up to 40% in energy savings, respectively reduce CO2 emissions. We can reduce up to 80% of the operational problems. And our software is self-learning, self-adapting, means it speaks the language of your building. Whatever you have inside, how many sensors you have there, our AI core is able to cover the missing data. As I mentioned in the beginning, it's not only a concept, it is already a reality. Here we can see 2 buildings that we equipped in Germany with our software, and we could achieve an average of 29% in energy savings within 1 month. We can do this not only in Germany, but as I mentioned, we can do it worldwide. So it doesn't matter if your buildings are in Japan, in Berlin, in the UK, in the USA. We have a remote implementation process, and this offers us a simple business model, which is software as a service. So you don't pay anything up front. We remotely implement our software within 1 week, and you get the first results after 1 month, and you pay only a monthly fee based on the energy consumption. How does it work, or what do we need to make our software work? So as I mentioned in the beginning, we're looking for commercial buildings, such as an office or an hotel. Then we need a building management system that is already in place, and our main communication protocol should be BACnet IP. With these technical requirements, we can guarantee that the ROI, the return on investment, is positive from the first month on, because we don't charge anything upfront, and the fee that you pay is, of course, always lower than the savings. How does an implementation process look like? It's a simple 3-step process. So we gather some information from you, for example, location, size of the building, the energy consumption. We do the connection and the scan, model the building and create a digital twin of the building, and then we do the self-learning and the go live. With this approach, we've been able to convince or to win a lot of awards and partner companies to work with us and to share a common vision, which would be a future in which the buildings take care of the people and not the other way around. And this is exactly what we're also looking for in Japan. And now open for questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Nico. It's really like amazing, not even turnkey or really like just like this solution for amazing result. Like urbanization coming as a big trend in the world, I see there's only the opportunities. One question, so if this is such a big opportunity, there might be competitors. Is there any like your go-to-market plan to kind of outpace and first in the market, or how is your plan to grow in this space?
So thank you for the question. We have different USPs. So there are many energy efficiency solutions, but what do we different from competitors? So with our edge technology, I would say we have 3 main USPs, which would be the first is the implementation. We don't need any kind of hardware, and we don't need to be on site. So we can install our software remotely in less than 1 week. Therefore, don't charge any kind of upfront costs. The next thing would be the self-adaptation. So we don't need any kind of additional features in the building, whatever is there. So we are adapted to the reality of the market. Whatever you have in your building, our software can work with it. So the typical building infrastructure may not be the perfect smart building IoT infrastructure that everyone is like talking about, but you will find rarely some sensors and some data to work with. But our AI core is able to cover this lack of data with the artificial intelligence. And then the third one would be results. As we remotely implement our software within 1 week, we're able to deliver our results after 1 month already, guaranteeing a positive ROI from the beginning on.
Thank you. It's really perfect solution, especially now given like this COVID, you can't even travel, but you can still start your project.
Exactly, and you can remotely access your whole building portfolio. So you don't have to monitor and control every building by itself, but you can control or manage your whole portfolio in one dashboard.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so let me move to the last startup. It's called Neon. So Neon is a little different. They are developing a sustainable building kind of ecosystem inspired by biophilic design. And they're really connecting also Japan and Europe. So let's hear their story from Ryo Taro. Ryo, are you ready?
Yes, thank you for having me.
Perfect.
Just a second. So can you see my screen? Perfect.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Joe, and I'm really excited to introduce you to Neon. Neon is a more like, urban development project, building project. But before I get into hardware and tech, I would like to talk about the background and the vision and the idea. First of all, I would like to start with culture. And what you see here is very famous in Berlin. It's a döner kebab. And actually, this is, as you may know, it's Turkish food. And it's Turkish culture. But however, the phenomena of the fast food called döner or kebab was invented in Berlin, which is not Turkey. So what it tells us, or how it inspired me, is to see that culture is delivered by people, and the space just needs to be a nourishing space to accelerate that kind of culture. So Berlin seemed to be the perfect place for a Turkish community to launch a fast food product that conquered the rest of Germany and then the rest of the world. And essentially, what we would like to do with Neon is to create a space where culture can be accelerated and spread from one place to the other. In this case, maybe bring in a little bit of Japanese culture that can spread to Berlin, spread to Germany, and maybe the rest of Europe. What we see here is a building. It's the old department store with about 12,500 square meters in the center of Neukölln. It's in southern hipster part of Berlin. And we would like to create a house of many kinds, different cultures, including, of course, technologies of all kinds as well. This is a Japanese slide, so for my English-speaking colleagues, essentially, what Neon is a house where we have certain values, where we want to bring all kinds of things together. So when we say we are all one with different cultural backgrounds, religions, ethnics and races, but also different fields. Is it entertainment? Is it art? Is it creativity? Or is it pure technology? And in that sense, what brings us all together are our certain set of values where we would like to orientate us with. And I would like to put a little emphasis on a few. One is, like Chica already mentioned, is biophilia. We want to create a green oasis in the center of the city where we can nourish our love for nature and all beings. One very important part is transparency, so that we have a process where everything is very clear of what we are doing from a financial point of view, from a content point of view, and how we're developing the project. And all these values are integrated into one, I would say, and the values, as I already mentioned, is integration. Integration means for us that we don't want to create a new UFO in the middle of somewhere, but that that place has to be an active part of everyone involved. So if you put in technology, it has to be relevant with everything that is happening in that building. The people who are part of the building need to be involved with the other people in the building. The building itself has to be part of the neighborhood and the city itself, and so on. So the integration process is extremely of importance, and we use all these certain set of values to create that. It's our goal to create a partnership. I mean, Berlin and Tokyo are already partners, city partners since 25 years. This year will be 26. And we would like to create more tangible connections with the city of Tokyo and Berlin. And since we are based in Neukölln, maybe we can also use a very cool area, or one of the cool areas in Tokyo, which is very young, startup orientated and quite dynamic and creative, maybe like something like Shibuya. And we would be very excited to create multiple channels of partnerships with Japan and Neukölln and this building. A little excursion on what is biophilia. To keep it short, essentially, it's a very strict term on how you would create space. And essentially, what are the experience that I would like to provide is that when you walk into the building, you have a sense of strolling into the woods. that you're going into a garden, and you have all the leaves around you. To give you an idea, essentially we have 3,000 plants on each floor, creating an immense green oasis where your well-being is at the center. It's a big house with multiple floors, so every floor has a certain topic that we will be focusing on. It's a food and retail, food and wellness. We will have a tech campus where all the technology of the house, with the tenants who provide the technology of the house. We will have a digital world that is more into entertaining with gaming and esports. And to be true to the Berlin culture, we will have a club and an event space in the house as well. All with a very beautiful lush open space on the terrace where we have urban gardening, permaculture, and another green oasis on the top floor of the building. To give you a little bit background how this project was inspired and started is a project that is also related. It's called InfraLab. It's an infra technology hub in Schöneberg in Berlin, where we brought basically all the infrastructure companies of Berlin together onto a round table to understand that for the solutions of tomorrow, for a smarter Berlin, we need to put our resources, our expertise openly on the table and create synergies. So in this Tech Hub InfraLab, we had 9 companies. That was like public transportation, waste management, water supply, electricity grid, gas, and so on. So basically, it encompasses the whole city's infrastructure. And the idea was, how can we create a better city, a more resourceful and optimized city by creating a roundtable and putting all the ideas and synergies together onto one. And all that knowledge and that process we would like to implement in the Neon House as well, where we see the whole building as a little ecosystem, a small city by itself with all its inhabitants, and to create a smarter, more sustainable building. So infrastructure and the whole sustainability facility management will be an excellent challenge to turn a, well, almost 70-year-old concrete building with almost no windows into a lush green space that is smart and sustainable. On that platform, and also to be tangible with Japan, we have multiple channels where we want to connect with Japan and create exchange. One is the Neon Bridge. It's a tech exchange program where we invite technologies from Japan to participate in the project of the Neon House as a tenant, but also to provide the technologies, but also vice versa, where we can test case all kind of technologies in the building and introduce them to Japanese companies and corporates and see if that technology is applicable. On the cultural end, we will have a Japanese select shop, a Japan Discovery, where we would introduce Japanese culture through their products, through their craftsmanship, and so on a monthly basis, introducing different areas of Japan. So it's not always about Tokyo and Kyoto, but also all the other areas, the rural areas of Japan that are fascinating and interesting. And Berlin is a hot pot also for Japanese culture more and more. So we see the need that there is a more in-depth look into Japanese culture. One more topic that we see a strong bridge with Japan is esports. Berlin is an esports hub, and we would like to implement more of that, build a bridge with Japan. Tokyo is the hotspot for esports in Japan, and having that exchange on a social but also on an economic level, socioeconomic level, would be very exciting. And this is also a bridge that can be more online in the beginning, but as we know, esports is also a physical thing where people come together and play together and train together. We see a lot of synergies there to create the digital, to connect the digital and the real world. And that's again the most important slide. This is the core of our project, our values, and from there on we expand into culture, tech, and all of others. So I'm very excited if you would join us to build the first neon ecosystem together.
Thank you very much, Ryotaro. I think it seems like probably Neon House can already integrate both Enapta's Electrolyzer and Dabell's energy management system to be more sustainable.
Absolutely. I just thought the same. I was like, hey, we need to talk, guys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's really great. So thank you very much for all the startups and great presentations and inspiring inspirations. So let's move on to the panel discussion. I'd like to invite you, Ens and Nico, to unmute yourself so that we can start talking about more like how to create sustainable synergies and working together. Working together here means also like between Japan and Germany, as well as startup and corporate. So here today, after talking with all the startups separately, I see that you are already either working with Japan or interested in Japan as an opportunity or market somehow. So I'd like to hear from you how did you come to Japan as an possible opportunity place, and what if you have already working with Japan, what kind of relationship do you have? Not personally, more from business point of view, but would like to hear personal stories, how you get into Japan too. So where shall we start? Maybe Jens, do you want to start?
Yeah, okay, I can start with that. So from personal point of view, I've been to Japan several times already. I spent about 2 years in Japan during my studies. And I worked for a Japanese company before joining Enapta. And for Enapta, Japan is a very interesting market. And actually, Japanese companies were among the first who got interested in the AEM technologies already several years ago. So we have contact with Japanese companies already for 5 or 6 years, I would say. So we have some customers in Japan who are using our product in some very interesting first of a kind hydrogen applications in Japan. And we see Japan, of course, as an interesting market because Japan is one of the first countries who set a very aggressive hydrogen strategy for the future. A lot of companies and a lot of companies are working in different hydrogen fields in Japan. So there's quite a lot of knowledge about hydrogen as well. And so we see many, many more opportunities to work together with Japanese companies in the future.
Great, thank you. And are you planning to go to Japan?
Yes, so our plan was to open an office in Japan already this year, but Corona made that a little bit difficult because we cannot travel so freely nowadays to Japan. So in fact, it would have been nice to join the Venture Cafe in Tokyo today, but at least I can join from here. So we hope that soon travel restrictions will be eased and that then it will become easier to open an office, because we think that even though you can do a lot with virtual meetings and phone calls and emails, it's very important also to have face-to-face meetings, especially if you get into deeper technology discussions with your customers. And I think especially in Japan, companies are like us as well interested in long-term relationships, and face-to-face meetings are very important for building up trust and the relationship.
Yeah, true. I think first when Corona happened, I was really kind of shocked, and I was thinking like, face-to-face is really important in Japan, and when we cannot meet, what's going to happen to the economy? But I think it started to moving to the good direction that we can do both online as well as, we can still value the face-to-face. But for me too, it's also like, some of the meeting only happens online, just like this today. And yeah, it's kind of going to the business. So maybe I'd like to hear from Nico. And so in your case, actually, you don't need to go to Japan to start the business because your solution can be installed online too. So coming from Germany and looking at Japan as a kind of potential target market. So how did you come to think Japan as a potential target market?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. First of all, I am also a big fan of Japan and the Japanese culture. I was there 3 times. Last time was in winter, like over Christmas, 2018. In Tokyo and Osaka, I really enjoy the Japanese culture, also especially the food, which is really, really good. But in terms of business, why Japan? Japan offers a really modern infrastructure. So compared on a global average, Japan is far above average. For example, then if you compare it to European building standards, especially in the tier 1 cities, buildings are quite modern. They have a really good infrastructure. Japanese culture is innovative. We've been talking to a big Japanese corporate for over a year now. The plan was also to go there to visit them. The goal was to close a sales partnership with them for the Japanese market. Obviously, that did not happen due to COVID, so things got in a delay a little bit. I think we're all facing these kind of problems. And we really admire, let's say, the government of Japan that has really strict CO2 regulations, or they have high ambitions to reduce CO2 emissions of Japan within the next years. And also Japan has really high energy costs. So on a global scale, Japan is one of the countries with the highest energy costs in the world. And with our technology, with our software, we could help companies reduce their energy costs a lot. So this all with the benefits of, let's say, the Japanese culture of doing long-term business, not only making a sale and then disappear, but more like a long-term business relationship. Japan is a really interesting market for us.
Yeah, thank you. I think also, like, especially with the new prime minister, the set target is much stronger. So, and your solution doesn't require lots of upfront, investment, which is really like a good opportunity for both of you and corporates in Japan too, big buildings especially. So, Yotaro, here you are. And some of them people they probably don't know you. So probably you can explain your relationship with Japan and how you are bridging already between Japan and Berlin startup ecosystem and corporate relations.
Well, I mean, by your name, you can tell that I am Japanese somehow. I'm half Japanese, half Italian. And but I had the pleasure to grow up most of my time in Germany. So I'm German, Italian, Japanese, I would say. And I had the pleasure to live almost 9 years in Tokyo. And I've been a Berliner since 11 years now. So just because of my DNA, growing up between all these cultures, it's been a very strong mission of me personally to connect these cultures in a most harmonious way. I mean, there's so much. After living in Tokyo for 10 years almost, and then now living in Berlin for 10 years, I can compare really well the goods and the bads, and how much how much potential there is, what we could learn from each other and benefit from each other. So it's been my aim since many years now, since I've been living in Berlin, to connect the Japan and Berlin. And I've been doing liaisons between Tokyo and Berlin for quite a while. I organized a few business conferences and bigger events in Tokyo with Berliners for the 20th and the 25th anniversary of Tokyo and Berlin. So we took like 35 projects, startups, investors, but also creatives, designers, and musicians from Berlin to Tokyo, and had a big beautiful event there with a couple of days and connecting just amazing people together. And essentially what we saw is there's so much potential when great people meet each other. However, we are like 10,000, more than 10,000 kilometers away from each other. So it's hard to maintain this relationship. That's why we said we need to create a tangible platform, a space where we can actually nourish that kind of energy and excitement all year long. And that's how the idea of Neon started, basically, that we create a place where that kind of exchange can happen. And the exchange is always on multiple levels. Is it creative? Is it culturally? Is it just food? Is it technology? Is it economy? So there are many layers to that. And that's been my mission since.
Thank you. So working together and bringing two locations together, we also need lots of working together with corporate and startups. And I think you have lots of experience working with Japanese corporate as well as working with German corporate in terms of startup, corporate relationships. So what's your experience, or if you can somehow compare working with Japanese corporates versus working with German corporate? What are the similar points? What are the differences? What are the same pain or new pain working with Japanese corporate?
I mean, let's split that up. So let's say there's a big difference between startups and corporates to start with. I would say the main thing is startups are very quick and agile and very innovative in that process, obviously. And corporates have lots of resources and capacity. But on the other hand, they're very, very slow because they have a very strong administration process and regulations, et cetera, that will inhibit them to do many of the things that startup can do. And that has been problematic a lot as well. I mean, I've worked with startups and corporates and brought them together. And that was one of the main issues, was always decision-making processes and speed. Decision-making is a difficult one in the corporate world. Decision-making is a survival, is a key point in every startup. You make hard decisions every day when you run a startup. And then taking that to Japan, where there's also like a language barrier as well as a cultural barrier, I would say the main thing that needs to be established first, especially with Japanese partners and corporates, is trust. And based on that trust, you can create business, basically. And when you make trust, means it takes a little bit of time. You can't build trust tomorrow, and you can't build trust only on facts. So you need that human connection. And this is something I really value with Japanese partners, that the human connection is very, very important to create business together. Which seems a bit odd maybe at first, but it's a nice part of it. So if you're a startup from Berlin or from anywhere and you want to enter the Japanese market, you really need time and persistence to build that kind of relationship. I think that is very important. But once you have that relationship, you will have very, very strong partners in Japan, because they really tend to stick together.
Right, right. Yeah, that sounds like what Nico said. It takes a long time to open the first door, because you really need to build a bridge, which is a trust. And once you're there, then you'll have longer relationship. So maybe, Jens, you might have worked also like with, German corporates as well as Japanese corporates. Is there any difference have you experienced between working with German corporates and Japanese corporates? Is there any like cultural difference? Is there any process difference? Or is it just working with big corporate is actually same, even it's in Germany or Japan?
I would say some of the points that Leo mentioned are like the difference between working with German and Japanese corporates. But then the difference between working among small companies or startups with big corporates, that is something which is maybe similar in Germany and Japan, because the bigger the company is, the longer the decision-making process is, there will be more rules. There will be a lot of requirements in terms of documentation that needs to be done and things like that. But Leo, I think you wanted to add something here as well.
I would just say I think, like you said and mentioned, the process is very similar, comparable, except that it takes a little bit longer with the Japanese end. I think that's my experience, that it always took a little bit longer with the Japanese side than the German side.
I can totally confirm that. So with big corporates, it's always, let's say, a challenge in terms of startups. You usually want to have a short sales cycle, be fast, be iterative. And with big corporates, as there are many departments involved, like legal departments, technical departments, business departments, sometimes it's hard to find out who the decision maker really is and who to target. And this can make it difficult, and the process sometimes quite long. But from my experience, it is absolutely worth it to, let's say, suffer this long corporate sales cycle, because then you also get really valuable long-term business relationships, especially in B2B.
Have you been, I think, Nico, you were in a kind of German accelerator who is helping you to connect to the potential, I assume, business partners. Would those kind of warm introduction help to shorten the sales cycle that you just mentioned?
Connections definitely help. For example, we have been connected to a big real estate construction company from India. And the decision maker was quite straightforward. So it was a 10-minute conversation. Then he said, yeah, let's do a pilot and then roll out from there. So personal relationships, at the end of the day, it's still a people's business. And therefore, we would have loved to fly to Japan this year. But yeah, as COVID came, everything got a little bit more difficult. And then also due to the time difference, makes it a little bit harder. But we are optimistic that we can still do long-term business with Japanese clients.
Right. So you mentioned about the decision makers, that brought me to the question. So when you meet, I'm asking three of you, with a German corporate, are the decision makers usually there? And when you meet Japanese companies, are the decision makers usually there or not there? Is there any differences? Is it just hard to reach to decision makers in any case, or is there any differences?
If I may speak, then I was always lucky, I would say, that I had decision makers in front of me when we were talking and discussing things. But that wasn't always the point. I think since corporates have boards, and even though one person can make significant decisions, the decision has to go through a due diligence and all that kind of process that in a smaller company or in a startup wouldn't really exist. So no matter how high the executive is that we met in discussions, it always took some time until the decision was finally made. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So it was not really depending on the power, so to speak, or the authority of the executive we were speaking to. There was still a process behind it that took time.
Right. How about you, Jens?
Yeah, I can totally agree with that. So if you talk to big corporate companies, even if you have people from quite high up management also joining, or if you have the group manager who really is interested in doing the first project, at a later point of stage, purchasing department will also be involved, quality assurance department will also be involved, and they will have questions which before didn't come up. So there are different departments that need to talk to each other, and there's this due diligence process which will surely take time. So if you have like a relatively small company where the CEO can make all his decisions, then sometimes sales cycle can be very quick, 2-3 emails, a phone call, and then he decides, okay, I want to do it. And they do a test, and such decisions take significantly longer in big corporates.
All right. I guess that's going to be confirmed by Nico too.
Absolutely.
Okay,
I
yeah.
think we all have some similar experiences on that.
So the time is running. It's already like 1 o'clock in Germany, which means 9 o'clock in Japan. So maybe it's like a final comment, if I can get from you guys, like if you can improve one thing about Japan, which makes you easier to do business with Japan, what that would be?
Hopefully, I would say that the Neon platform will make it easier in the future, hopefully. That's my wish. But essentially, my final remark would be there is appreciation for Japanese culture here. There is appreciation to open up and exchange ideas, technology, and have also a more economical, tangible bridge now happening between Berlin or Germany and Japan. And I think more and more platforms, not just us, but more and more platforms are popping up to create the bridge between the two. And so I hope that there will be more and more initiative also from Japan to reach out to the global market and come to us, to Berlin, to Europe, and try and experiment with us, and vice versa. Open up the doors in Japan so all these amazing technologies and companies from Europe can, even as a small company, come to Japan and have a chance to connect. So that's my wish and hope, and I hope I can be part of it.
Thank you.
So yeah, then if I would have to, or if I could change one thing, that would be the end of the Corona pandemic, because then we would be able to go there physically and to accelerate things in person, since I think personal contact is still very appreciated. Also here in Germany, we're getting more and more used to doing these kinds of events digital, like on Zoom, Microsoft Teams, whatever it is. But that would be, I think, the main thing, because we are really looking for a good partner that is willing to do a long-term business relationship to accelerate business in Japan.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, fully agree with that. Would be very good to go to Japan again, to have also face-to-face meetings. And the other points mentioned by Lothar were also very good. So there are already some startup initiatives to connect international startups with Japanese companies. And I think more of that would be really good.
Okay, great. So last kind of question. If anybody want to get in touch with you, what is the best way to get in touch? That's through email or LinkedIn?
Email.
Okay, if you have email, maybe you can write it to the chat section so that everybody can get it. Otherwise, everybody can get in touch with me to the CrossB, or either on LinkedIn or Facebook. Then I will get them in touch with everybody else.
Me would be the same, email or LinkedIn. I'll just post it in the chat.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so we have all the contact information on the chat. So for that, thank you very much for joining today, and thank you for the great presentation to the startups, and Venture Cafe for hosting us. I have few people who couldn't make it, which I would like to introduce separately to you guys as well. So, and if anybody who is in the audience who want to get in touch with them, just get them in using the information on the chat. You can directly get in touch, or you can contact me to get in touch with them. So thank you very much. Let's keep this dialogue, and we're looking forward to next time and future collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chika-san. Thank you, everyone who participated in the session right now. For those of you who can't copy and paste the emails, there's a quick trick on Zoom. You highlight it and you drag it onto whatever you like, Word doc or email or something like that, and you can. It's a reverse trick. So 皆さんEメールとかコピーできない場合はちょっとハイライトして自分のどっかなんかにドラッグすると入れるようになるんで、そこはちょっと裏技っていうところなんで、もし皆さん登壇者とつながりたい場合はぜひそちらをEメールかあるいはリンクトインですね、使っていただければと思います。And yes, thanks to everyone and stay safe and stay happy. John, it's probably very true. But if there's any last minute questions, we're here, we're open. If there's anything you guys want to do before you guys all leave, we've got a couple more minutes just in case. So any last minute questions for anyone? I do have one from a Japan side. If we as Japanese people, because we talked a lot about incoming, we're coming over to Berlin or to Germany or into Europe, where would we find you? What are some hotspots where we can connect with startups and entrepreneurs as yourselves if we were to come there next, once we can travel?
I mean, if I may say, I would definitely say Berlin. That's a great place to connect because of many reasons. One is comparably to one of the major cities in Europe, and it's still the cheapest one by far. No comparison to Paris or London in terms of pricing. So it's really easy to start up a business with low barriers and low risks. Berlin is very international by now. Most of the people speak English, so the language barrier is not as harsh as it used to be. So communication is feasible. And it's a very vivid city. It's very young, lots of young people, lots of international young talent coming to Berlin to enjoy the city. So it's a great way to connect with talent as well. So I would say Berlin is a very good place to connect.
Yeah, definitely. I was just talking about it with a co-working space called Factory, which is very famous like co-working space in Berlin. And like out of the people who are moving to Berlin, more than 50% are non-Germans nowadays. So like a street level, we speak 70% English. And when you're in startup world, probably English is the first language because there are lots of people who cannot speak German. So Berlin is not exactly like a German-speaking German city anymore. And yeah, so many startups and so many like funding to help startups in the very early stage. And there are lots of fund coming also from outside of Berlin to fund like growth stage startups. And the difference between Berlin and Paris is that the biggest part is probably the diversity and internationalization. And when you look at the like startup accelerator in Berlin, for example, Techstars, like some of the butts doesn't contain even one single German company. So all the startups coming from all over the world already, they are getting ready to be internationalized, like looking into global market with their ideas, looking into what is fitting for us as the market. So they're not really like creating product for their local market. So for anybody who want to be international, global like startup, I think Berlin has a great ecosystem to support it.
Maybe one thing to add on to what Chika said is Berlin has become a trend hotspot. So lots of advertising agencies do all their research and sampling or market research in Berlin for the Europe campaigns. So when a big lifestyle entertainment company is trying to do a European campaign for their new product, they will definitely do their research here in Berlin, which is very exciting for Japanese corporates who want to do a market launch for Europe. They could use Berlin as an excellent hub to research the products first and then to launch it larger scale in Europe. So that's also an excellent point for an entry. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Cool.
Any other questions? 他に質問などありますか？ちかさん、日本語でも対応できますもんね。
できます、できます。日本語でも大丈夫です。
大丈夫ですかね？じゃあ。
はい。
じゃあ、引き続き、皆さんと交流できればと思うので。Thank you again, everyone, for participating, both audience members and speakers. For the speakers, I know we went over lunchtime, so hopefully if you're going to work, we're not making it too late to your next meeting or anything like that. Chika-san, thank you again for putting this together, and we hope to work with you again soon, very soon. And from Tokyo, have a great night. And in Germany and the rest of the world, wherever you guys are, have a good day. Enjoy yourself, and then be safe.
Thank you very much,
Thank you
Zach.
very
Same
much.
to
Thank you very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. See you in
Bye.
Tokyo soon.
Bye. Yeah, great. Bye.
Minasan, お疲れ様です。